This is a Momentum Media production.
The IFA Show. The stories behind the financial advice headlines with the team from IFA.
Hello everyone, Mai here, the editor of the IFA. Today for you, I actually have a very special episode of the IFA show. So this one will actually be hosted by my colleague Annie Kane, and she brings you an episode of the Women in Finance Awards podcast, where she chats to Anthony Waldron, the CEO of Financial Services and Mortgage Choice at Mortgage Choice. So Annie and Anthony talk about encouraging more females into the financial services space and what can be done to support women in this industry. I really do hope you enjoyed today's podcast, and I might see some of you at next week's Women in Finance Awards hosted by Momentum Media.
Thank you so much for joining us, Anthony. How you going?
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Well, we really appreciate your time. Obviously, a very busy man being a CEO of Financial Services and Mortgage Choice at the REA Group, a huge group, as we well know, looking at not only mortgages, but also the real estate industry across the board, really. And obviously a huge amount of work going on at the moment as well. Interest rates are going up. The property market is, shifting slightly. People are crying out for help for what their mortgages are doing and help with how they can actually survive the changing environment. Now we are seeing interest rates rise for the first time. Could you give us a little bit of an overview of what exactly you're seeing at Mortgage Choice in terms of the mortgages and property market?
Yeah, look, and it is a time of great shift. So if you talk about the market, it's moving quite quickly. We are still seeing the numbers of properties that are listing still sticking up, but that's not just because there's properties coming on. It's because properties are actually staying on site longer as well. In other words, it's taking longer for sales to occur in the market. It's not the same everywhere. The market is different in different parts of Australia. And so you are seeing different speeds of that contraction in the market, but it is an overall contraction. Like all other groups around the country, we're also seeing that move to that refinance piece as well. That's been a huge shift over the last few months. And as also the fixed rate cliff is sort of happening right now as people are rolling off those fixed rates. We're really seeing that the value of brokers come to the fore in terms of trying to help customers during that phase, especially that sticker shock of going from a fixed rate, which was quite low, potentially with a 1 at the front of it, to a new rate, which is in most cases at least more than double what they were paying. So, there's a lot going on. It is a very busy time, but overall, that contraction in the market is really starting to kick in, and that the number of transactions right across the market is reducing.
Yeah, I mean, as you say there, interest rates having risen for the 6th month in a row. The RBA hiked interest rates by 25 basis points at the beginning of October, and expectations are that will continue to rise throughout the year. So obviously, as you mentioned there, the value of brokers really coming to the fore as people review their finances, review what their mortgage is doing, or try and understand whether or not they can actually enter the market for the first time or invest in different areas. So a huge amount of work and activity happening in the broker space. But of course, when we talk about finance and financial services, we're not just looking at broking, we're also looking at accounting and looking at SMSF advice and wealth advice. There's a huge gamut that goes into financial services, different players in industry. But historically, the financial services and finance industry has been one which has been typically male dominated. We are seeing more and more women join the industry, and different sectors have different take up for women in finance. What do you believe might be barriers to preventing women come into this industry, whether it's broking or financial services more generally?
One of the key things is actually just the way the industry looks. The industry looks too much like me, male, stale and pale, right? And in that sort of situation, it doesn't necessarily encourage people to join an industry. They don't see themselves. But the reality of it is the industry needs to represent the community with which it operates. And that is going to be one of our measures of success, whether we actually look and feel like the community that we're servicing and we operate in. It's also an opportunity, because the more we look like the communities we service, the more the community comes to you. And so, there's an economic return that happens out the back of that. But one of the key barriers for me is just also, being able to see examples of people who've done well, being able to see real shining lights in the industry that you look up to as role models that are there. And so the Women in Finance Awards that we're talking about here, they're a great example of that. They provide the ability for us to put the spotlight on people who are those leading lights and who do provide that inspiration for people to follow.
Absolutely. And we are thrilled to have announced the finalists for the Women in Finance Awards on Friday. And obviously looking at a huge range of amazing women who are changing, I think, the face of financial services, delivering massively, important work, and also delighting their customers and clients across a range of different industries. The actual awards themselves will be announcing the winners at the ceremony at the Star Sydney on the 3rd of November. And we're really looking forward to that event. It's a luncheon event, but it's one where we can still get to dress up and champion. And over the last few years, we've been doing it here in Sydney, and it's been so much fun having that sort of network of different women from across the financial services join together and be supported by obviously a lot of men as well in the room, and just so much love, I think, in the room to try and really encourage and support those leading the way. When it comes to actually looking at the time to shine, I suppose, the moment in time in November when we actually do the awards, we shouldn't forget that we're not just doing this as a one-off to champion people and give them an award and move on. It is really about profiling and championing these people. And of course, here on The Advisor, we do a lot of that work in the Advisor magazine and on site and across of our financial services suites as well. We champion and profile a lot of these leading women. But when you think about, I suppose, what makes a successful person, what makes a successful business owner in the financial services industry, regardless of gender, what does that look like for you?
I think it's a real desire to be there for the customer when the customer needs them. It's really around how do you centre that for the customer, and how do you be there at the moments that matter, and having that just strong desire to be there during those times. So, we all know that owning a house is in many cases kind of the old Australian dream, but actually being there and facilitating that for someone and, enjoying that, like actually that being something that becomes enjoyable for you, and you get that real sense of satisfaction out of being able to see the difference you can make in someone's life. And so being able to, and when you do see that and you get that sense of that, that really drives some business owners and some people who are in the industry. And when you see that, you just see the success that comes off it. And so when they truly get that alignment between the needs of the business owner and their customer, it makes a massive difference. And to me, that actually is where the success is. And it's not necessarily meaning that you've got the most customers of anywhere or you're the fastest growing of anywhere. It's actually about that success of helping each and every customer into their home.
Yeah. And I think that's a common theme that we hear from previous winners of the Women in Finance Awards, is saying how much they love their job, how much they love being able to help people achieve their dreams, to understand their financial position, to become financially independent, and to do what they want to do, and to do it safely, and also with, I think, hopefully wealth generation in effect as well. Really getting people on a better path. Very, very rewarding for a lot of people in the financial services industry, and particularly now, as we mentioned here in broking, where a lot of people are actually helping people get onto the ladder for the first time. They're helping their clients' children getting onto the ladder, seeing multi-generational clients. That's always super exciting. And I think having that sort of belief and want to help people get to where they want to get must be massively rewarding. When it comes to, though, I think looking again at the female piece, the gender piece in the industry, a lot of brokers specifically, I think, benefit perhaps from the fact that there isn't a salary disparity. Most brokers work on commission. So actually parity of pay is something that is really interesting in the broking industry specifically. What else do you think is encouraging more people to look at broking or to look at entering the financial services space for the first time?
I think there's a few things there. I think we've already touched on one of them, which is the ability to make a difference in someone's life. That when you actually see that, it becomes real, and you can, you get hooked on it almost in terms of that piece. The second is you can see people and examples out there. You can see the role models, you can see what they have achieved, and you can see what's possible for you and your business as you're starting out that's there. I think the other things that are important are the professionalism of the industry. And the fact that the industry has really grown, it is recognised. And in fact, some of the things that the industry has been through over the last few years with royal commissions, with ASIC reviews, with every other review you can imagine going on, at the back of it, the strength is actually that there's greater recognition of the value that's created for customers at the back of it. And you've heard that from government, both Labor and Liberal. You've heard that value that's there. And so people recognising it as an industry and recognising it as a career that you can have is incredibly important. And you're seeing that even in some of the university degrees and people giving greater cadence and greater importance to understanding finances, to understanding how important debt is in someone's life in terms of whether that be through establishing a small business, whether it's getting a house, whatever, but that actually playing a bigger part in the education aspects as well. So you've really got to start right back there. You have to start at the educational piece and as you try and pull people through into it as well. I think also creating community is really important and creating a community for whether it be brokers or whether it be women in finance that's there, creating a community that people feel that they are a part of and wanting to belong to is greatly important also. And again, things like these awards and recognition of it actually helps create that sense of community. And so I think that's really important as well.
Yeah. And we love that we can bring together different members from across the industry. A lot of the time, create new referral partners to talk about the same issues they're facing, how they can, create new opportunities and how they can actually also sometimes surmount challenges if they're facing if they have a client that they don't actually know how to help. A lot of the time, people in the room are able to help them. So we love bringing together the network and having that sharing of knowledge and sharing of community. But of course, I think a lot of what it comes down to is the fact that so many of the women in this industry are small business owners. They run their own business. They own their own business. They might be working for, a small business owner themselves, whether they're a loan admin support or in there doing some other sort of, behind the scenes EA role. They might be working for a small business. So it's also looking at championing small business owners, particularly female small business owners, which traditionally, again, in a minority. While we have seen a lot of small SMEs being owned by women, a lot of the time it comes down to the time of day that people have to be able to work, which I think might be another benefit and attraction for financial services and particularly in broking is being able to set your own times, being able to work when you want to.
Oh, I totally agree. That flexibility that you can have in this type of role is incredibly important. I mean, obviously you need to be there when your clients need you, whatever time that is, and you can often manage that around your own needs. But then that flexibility is really important. I think what we've seen, again, off the back of COVID also, the ability to utilise technology better, whether it's using the likes of Zoom and the equivalents to make it easier as well, but also make it safer. So not having to be in a position where, that physical safety is also there because you can use technology in different ways. I think they're all important aspects of it. And you talked about the community and helping each other there as well. In Mortgage Choice, we have a group called Aspire, which is actually about that. It's about creating the network internally within the women in Mortgage Choice community. And that group, that's becoming increasingly important, not just as role models, but as you say, helping each other and working through the example of that customer who's doing something a bit odd or working through, different things that they haven't seen before as they're going through that. So, again, that community aspect of it becomes increasingly important.
Another aspect as well that we typically talk about, not only having flexibility of time, is also being able to do things like look after the kids, pick up the kids from school, which obviously not a gender specific issue, parental issue generally across the board. But for a lot of women, actually being able to be the primary caregiver and run a business is something that's really attractive. And again, an attractive area for financial services is the fact that you can potentially set your own times and work when you want to, be able to pick up the kids in school, be able to take them to soccer practice or whatever it may be while still running your own business. But do you think there's anything that could be done to better cater to women wanting to raise families?
From a mortgage broking perspective, I think there are things that we can do. Again, use technology better so that you don't have to do things face to face, so that you don't have the travel time, so that you can increase the efficiency with which you're doing things. You need to build relationships, and many times you've got to do that one-on-one and face to face. But once you've done that, utilize the technology better. Actually, it allows you to then get through more customer meetings to help more customers in what you're doing around it as well. So I think that would be one. In terms of other encouragement, it actually gets down to people accepting different behaviour and activity as well. And, you talk about being able to go off to pick kids up from something or whatever. I don't see that as a male or female issue. I just see that as a societal issue. And I would hope that we can actually encourage more men to do that as well. So, that becomes a greater balance in the way that things play out. In creating that, for more men to do that, you also create the opportunity for more women to still be in the workplace during that period of time as well, so that you get greater uniformity of the way that we act. They're not male or female roles. They're just things you have to do. I got 2 kids. My God, how many times have I almost left them on the side of the road because it's been flat out, to get things done. But it's both parties' role within that. And so I think encouraging that and accepting norms that they're no longer these particular roles of particular genders. They are just societal norms of things that need to happen, and parental roles or maybe not even necessarily parents. It could, because it's not always for kids. It can be, caregiving. It can be all sorts of things that are required, particularly as we move through this generation where, the baby boomers are getting older and the next generation is going to need to support their parents more. It's not just that sort of thing. So I think that it's important to accept things as normal and just say, well, that's the way it is. And COVID, I think we just don't want to forget many of the things we did during COVID. That allowed people greater flexibility in the way they worked. And it also made customers accept that was the way things would happen a bit more. So really encourage people to not forget about the good bits. There were some really awful bits, but not forget about the good bits of those work practices that came out of it. And so make sure you continue to get the best out of all those, because they actually provide the flexibility for whether it's women to be, in broking or in the workforce in a different way, or whether it's just to get greater normality in the way that we support around our families and all those things. I think it's really important we continue to encourage some of those practices.
Absolutely. And I think, as you mentioned there, having programs and support networks in place to be able to do that, whether it's through Women in Finance Awards or through the Aspire program, like you have Mortgage Choice, or through any other network and association that might bring together people of a like mind to share professional development tips, to share also just the burden of being a business owner and come through the other side, hopefully feeling a bit more supported. And of course, that is something that we really are keen to share. We often have lots of professional development tips from the winners of the award, of the Women in Finance Awards. Obviously, go to the Women in Finance Awards website and look at the hub to find out the professional development tips from previous award winners, as well as profiles of award winners. We know that some of them include the Mortgage Choice broker, Dursley Taylor, who won the Women in Finance Awards Mortgage and Finance Broker Award multiple years in a row and is a finalist again this year as well. So we're looking forward to seeing how all the brokers and, of course, everyone across the financial services space goes through the awards program this year. And we look forward to seeing their top tips and advice as well. But I think it's interesting what you mentioned there about, the making it normal for anyone to be a caregiver, making it much more available for people to be able to work and to be able to manage the caregiving responsibilities they have, whether it's for elderly parents, whether it's for children, whether it's for anything else, and still be able to carry on their work and still be able to run the business they want and achieve their dreams. Technology, as you mentioned there, is such a key part of it. But also, again, having the support not only in your company, but in the networks that you're with to help provide that too. A massive part of what we see a lot of women do really well, I think, is provide that sort of, emotional support, the actual also practical support of when someone does need something doing, they can lean on someone, they know who to call, they have a person that they can talk to help them out. And that's, again, a really massively helpful piece, I think, for particularly women in finance, is having other women they can call to help them out when they need them. But it's not just brokers that we're looking at here at the Women in Finance Awards. Of course, it goes across mentors, directors, entrepreneurs, loan administrators, office administrators, bookkeepers, auditors, everyone in the whole sort of spiel. And from your background there, Anthony, you're not only Mortgage Choice CEO, but previously also worked in banking. So you've got a good gamut of experience here looking across the financial services space. Are there any things that you've seen that have been done particularly well over your career that you think would be great advice for women running their own business?
Yeah, look, probably a couple of things. The first is, you've already pointed out, get that network around you and have that support around you and create that however you need to do it. That's there, because, whether it's groups like Aspire, whether it's groups that you meet at Women in Finance Awards, where it's all those groups, others have already been through stuff. Learn from others. Unashamedly, use someone else's great idea around all of those aspects of it, and understand that you're not probably going through it anything that someone else hasn't been through. So how can you get that help in place? So for me, that'd be one of the key things. The second is understand what's possible. We often talk about, businesses and this business is growing at this rate and, you could never do that. And then you find someone who has. Right. And it just it's really important to be able to recognise that things are possible and how you can work through that. The second is if you're going to go into this environment and you are going to be the business owner, you need to have the work practices that encourage other people to come and work for you. So in this day and age, having work practices that don't enable a diverse workforce, then leave. Go and if that means setting up your own business, if that means going and finding somewhere else to work, then that's important because there are enough places out there today that do. And frankly, if we're going to force change into those that don't, then they need to not be able to get the talent. So I still think if I look back at my career, I saw too many people who were really, really talented not leave because they feared what might be out there and not move to that next opportunity that might be there. But if it doesn't suit you you are seeing examples of others who are in a better position, who have better work practices, who can have the flexibility to build their own businesses, who have that desire to do it and so on, go and get around them because they will help you see what's possible. But don't be stuck doing something you don't want to do.
Don't let fear hold you back, the fear factor. I love that. And I also love, as you say, we often hear how rewarding the financial services space is for people who do make the leap and how they wish they'd done it earlier. So I think that's great advice there. If you're not happy, if you don't know what you're doing, or if you see someone else doing something that you want to do, go and pick their brain, go and have the conversation, because at the end of the day, what else do you have to lose? We look forward to crowning all of the winners at the Women in Finance Awards ceremony, which takes place in the Star Sydney on the 3rd of November. Before I let you go, I wonder, when we think about making change and championing women in finance, we always sort of think, well, what actually is the mark of change? How will we know that change has been successful? And I wonder for you, what do you think the mark of change is?
There's probably two things that come to mind about that. One is, numbers, you can't lie with numbers. You actually have to measure it. And so if you can see the change in the number of people, in certain, whether it's females in certain roles and all those types of things. So don't be afraid that we set targets. That's fine, and targets, people tend to go after them and they tend to happen. So for me, there is a component of numbers are not a bad thing that's there. The second one for me is we'll just actually look around and our businesses will look more like the society we're in. And if we do that, I think you're going to find that you're going to have more successful businesses that are there. So actually, it'll be the measures of your business and the success of the businesses that underlie that you'll see actually change. There's thousands of studies that show diversity is actually a fantastic thing for the success of a business. And so I think you'll actually see that too, because we'll be more like the communities we serve.
Lovely. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Anthony, to talk to us on the Women in Finance Awards podcast. And of course, for your support with the Women and Finance Awards as principal partner.
Thanks, Annie. We're really, really proud to be part of the awards as well. So thank you.
Thank you. If you've got any questions for me or to find out more about the Mortgage Choice Aspire program, then do feel free to reach out. You can reach me at editor@theadvisor.com.au. And of course, check out the Mortgage Choice website to find out more about what they're doing to champion women in the mortgage broking space. We hope you have a wonderful week and we'll catch you hopefully at the awards in November at the Star Sydney. Take care and stay safe.